Hello everybody. I want to talk a little bit about how you can use your bit and your hands, your rein aids, to supple and relax your horse through his or her whole body. And I want you to just really listen to those words, relaxing the horse through their whole body by using the bit in a certain way. And I think how that starts to make sense is that we need to think about the bit not as a controlling or primarily restricting tool that we're using when we're riding our horses, but about a guidance tool. And the guidance tool will always say to the horse, come on, let's do this together, but let's relax and stay in tune with one another in a mode of positive tension. What I mean by that is that all the muscles and all the joints and the whole skeletal apparatus of both the horse and the rider need to stay connected and pose in a positive way so that they can perform the tasks that we're setting out to do together. But they're never supposed to be tense and hyper contracted for any length of time, right? And the bit is one of those tools where, we don't talk a lot about it. People talk about bits, what kind of bits to make the horse more submissive. And again, that goes straight into the canal or the channel of restriction and making the horse be obedient and all these things, right? And so what I want to say is, I want to remind those of us who have, ridden for a long time, but may not have come across the concept of the loosening the mouth of the horse, the jaw, creating a moment of release of tension in the jaw, so that the whole horse can relax in the pole first. Then in the pole, it connects, of course, through all of the top line and the muscles in the neck and the back, the haunches, on the stomach, the legs. Everything is connected to what the horse does in his or her mouth, right? So if that sounds like somehow a little bit of a strange concept, bite down on your teeth for a moment, really hard, and feel what that does to your neck muscles. And then think about how that might affect the rest of your shoulders and your back if you really, would hold that tension for any length of time. And it's the same for the horse, right? And a lot of horses and riders are kind of content or unaware with sort of this occasionally people feel the horse chew. It may be accidental, it may be whatever triggered it, but not an intentional releasing of that tension in the jaw in the horse, right? And so I want to show you how, in the mildest and easiest way, you can start paying more attention and inviting your horse to release that tension in his or her jaw. And what I'm doing right now, as you can see, I'm riding on a sort of medium-sized circle here and slowly picking up the reins a little bit. And what I'm going to do next is going to put a little bit of pressure on the inside rein. See how my hands are giving and taking both at the same time right now? I'm going to now stop and just hold my right rein. Hold it fairly stationary so that the right rein is continuously applying a fairly even amount of rein pressure to his mouth. And then I'm going to wiggle my lower leg a little bit, give a little bit of a vibrational impulse, and wait for him to give in the jaw. And he's done it already multiple times. As soon as he does it, I'll let him stretch forward down and straighten and release the rein pressure, right, on both reins. That's the reward. So the sequence is hold the inside rein, don't give until the horse gives in, and I don't really care where the head is or where he goes or where he moves or if he's crooked in some ways at all. I just want him to understand when I apply pressure, and you can see it, he's done it multiple times. I want you, the horse, to give and loosen your lower jaw a little bit, right? And then as a consequence, it seems to be that the horse will want to naturally stretch forward downward because it feels good. It's like a blockade has been undone in the horse's skeletal alignment, or, however you want to call it, structural alignment. And so that is the first part that you say to your horse, okay, please give to the rein pressure, but also don't forget the inside vibrational leg impulse. the outside leg stays farther back and supports and lets the horse know through sort of this this embrace that you're giving him from the top down that you don't want him to drift just sideways, even though that might be the original response in some horses, right? So then I'm going to change directions here. And I'm going to do it a little bit to the other side. Every horse is a little bit different when you first start out with this. Some of them are easy, like he's really, really easily chewing. As soon as I take a little bit off the left rein right now, then I'm going to let him relax and stretch forward, downward. So very important that the release of your rein pressure comes right after the release of the jaw tension that the horse is offering, right? So that there's a connection between the ask, the yielding to this aid that I'm giving, yielding to the aids, yielding to the inside or the outside aids is a term that is known for this type of requirement or, exchange with your horse. And so I just keep doing this. Sometimes I may meander into the center of the circle a little bit. That's okay. That might help me understand where my horse may need a little bit more outside leg. Or there it was again. See, and I'm just going to do it until it becomes second nature to the horse, right? He understands that when I take the inside rein and give a little bit of an impulse, he's releasing in the jaw. And then after a while, I might, take the reins up a little bit and go more into like a medium walk kind of frame again. And I'm going to say the same thing to him in the trot, right? I'm going to ask him with a little bit of inside rein pressure and inside leg, and I'm slowing it down right now. This is why it's not looking very particularly pretty. No big deal. This is what it's all about. And as some of you who may have watched me ride Spidey before, he's a little bit defensive to the leg, right? And what you just saw was exactly that. He's like, oh, I've done this. Done the walk part, and now we're going into the trot. And he's like, oh, I don't know, I don't want your leg there. So I'm going to focus back onto the original idea here, holding the inside rein, letting him release in the jaw, and as he's doing that, I'm going to cluck a little bit, give a little bit of a leg impulse to make him go just for a few steps into the trot, right? And this again is such a great example, letting him stretch, never becoming confrontational with a horse like this, who has learned due to, some training that wasn't correct and maybe some harsh treatments that he's become defensive to the leg. And in some ways, all these things have to work together. So, if we don't address one thing, then the rest can't be fixed, right? So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go into a little bit of a medium walk, working frame, hold the inside rein, let him yield in the walk to the aids, and then I'm going to say a couple of steps of trot. And like I said, I don't really care how this looks right now, where his head is. And there we go. And then I'm going to let him stretch, and I'm going to change directions just to break it up a little bit. This is such a good example. It's not necessarily always pretty when you start introducing these types of concepts to a horse, right? So I want you to see the beginning of it so that you don't get discouraged when it doesn't work with your own horses when you're trying this out at home, right? Because none of these things are usually taught at great length in the conventional dressage training. And so I want to just spend a little time again here. Inside rein, there you go, a little bit nicer already, right? And then stretching forward, downward. And that is really for right now, all I'm going to ask him. I'm going to do it again, hold the inside rein, let him yield in the jaw, few steps of sitting trot. So, super, right? So, and when you hear these things, if you haven't heard them before, if you haven't seen these types of interactions before, you may wonder, where is this going to take me when we're in a working mode, right? So the good news is that the more you practice this, the more compliant your horse will become, and the more easily you can just, even in the working frame, ask for a little bit of that inside contact that he needs to yield to. And yes, he's not used to this, so he's evading. I'm going to ask again. So now I'm going to help him a little bit more with my seat. And again, that is the very, very beginning of all of this. and to come back to where this is all going to take us, where this is going to take us. So imagine you're riding your corners in any kind of arena setting, and I have these little cones set up here so that it's a little easier to see. You ride your corners, and in every corner you do exactly that. You take a little bit on the inside momentarily, and then you let them straighten and release into that straightness a little bit. The German language has the word auflösen, into the forward, and it means dissolving. You're asking for a little bit something here, and here's a little bit of a hesitation because he's a little bit defensive to the leg, and then I'm dissolving it into a friendly leg forward. So a little bit of corners, and there you go. And then I'm going to give to him because he's like, oh, I don't know if I like this. Because it kind of interferes a little bit with what most horses are used to. And that is, the rider either fairly, consistently hanging a little bit on the reins, or a constant wiggling. Some people call it knitting with the hands, where they're constantly wiggling with the hands, and the horse becomes completely numb and sort of used and desensitized to anything that might be meaningful in terms of a more refined hand and leg aid. And so here I'm going to do it again. Inside leg, little bit, inside rein, straightening again. And then I'm going to dissolve it in the most, positive way that I can into the straight line, into the forward. And that is the first part, and then I can try and see if I can get a little bit of this in the posting trot. Again, he is very, very easily offended by a little bit too much leg aid. So I have to be careful. So here in the corner, I'm going to bend, ask for it, and dissolve into the straight line, into the forward, right? And so again, here, inside leg ask, inside rein, then dissolving into a straight line and going forward again, here again. And again, none of this is very polished, of course, yet, right? But it's the beginning of you understanding and letting your horse understand that after any length or short time of a few steps of going straight and even rein contact, you're going to ask again for the suppling in the jaw, which then in turn causes the horse to be more supple and relaxed through his whole or her whole body, right? And that is ultimately the only way that you can build a really wonderful partner that is not tense all the time, that doesn't go into like a space of learned helplessness, but also that relaxes and enjoys his own movement more and more, right? And that's what it's all about. Enjoyment, right? So I'm going to give him a little bit of a 2-point here, just as a release of pressure on the back. And then I'm going to go into the walk and say, well done. Really well done, Spidey. Lots of talking, I know, but it's really, really important to understand these principles and to spend a little time on watching and listening and trying things out, and maybe coming back to the video and saying, hey, I didn't quite get that. What did she say? And I don't mind at all if anybody wants to put some questions in the comments in the video below in the description. But so much for this subject. Hope it was a little bit sort of helpful and inspirational to you. Give it a try and ride with a smile and happy riding. Thank you, Spidey. Thank you.